All right, can you hear me all right?
We can online.
I'm kidding, I was just mouthing that. You guys like, I need my hearing aid. Online, we good, Clint, we good? Cody, thumbs up, thumbs up. He's back. He's back, just when you thought you were getting rid of me. I love it. They said, Dennis, you go on in the afternoon, about a half hour. All right, no problem, I could fill a half hour. I'm an Irish guy, give me a microphone, we're good to go. Then they said, oh, by the way, set's not coming, fill an hour. All right, now we have an issue. But we don't, because my first presentation was long anyway, so it all worked out. Funny how that works, isn't it? Plus, when you're doing a mental health conference, you shouldn't get stressed out about it, right? There's enough stuff in life to stress you out. Every time I travel and everyone's putting on these conferences like, oh, I'm all stressed out. Like, no. A suicide prevention conference, 5th annual, should not stress us out. There's enough outside these walls for us, right? So here you go, the people you meet when you're vulnerable. I told you guys my story about being quiet for 16 years, and then I opened up my mouth at a fundraiser, and somebody said, hey, you need to tell that story more often. And I said, ha, you heard the one and done show. We are done. And it just started rolling from there. So I wanted to do this session about the people you meet when I'm vulnerable. I told you all when the key to my life, and the beautiful people flow in is the minute I admitted that I struggle and I lost 2 brothers to suicide. The minute I let that facade down, whoosh, wonderful people flowed in. And I watched this one woman's video. She does a TEDx talk. You ever hear of this woman, Brene Brown? 56 million views. I have a TEDx talk. It's just about close to hers. Oh, just about 56 million off. This is the key. She's an awesome speaker. Staying vulnerable is a risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. And I'm here to tell you that on this planet, the 2 things that keep me tethered to earth are hope and social connection. And that's what we're talking about, right? Can I get an amen? Amen. Amen. There you go, brother. Gerard, there you go. Brene Brown. So there it is. We're going to talk about that. Oh, there he is, the TEDx talk. I'm going to play it because we have a little time to fill. No, I'm going to play it. It's only 17 minutes. I want you all, I'm going to break this down. This is hilarious. My whole life's hilarious because, the first time I talked, how did I get to the TEDx stage? Unbelievable story. Because the first time I talked, I sucked. And you're saying, yes, Dennis, that was 8:50 this morning. That's not cool. Come on now. Come on. No, when I spoke at that fundraiser, it was 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And right before I went on, it was an Out of the Darkness walk. And right before I go on, they took a microphone. We were small enough at that time. They took a microphone and they handed it around to the crowd, one of those portable microphones you all been using today. And everybody said the name of the loved one they lost. And I watched my mom take the microphone and she passed it. She couldn't say Mark and Matthew. And when you're grieving, you're all over the board. There's no recipe. We just give them grace. She couldn't say it. She passes it to this woman and she says the name of her husband. And I'm like, all right, I just moved to this town. I don't know anybody, so I'm doing good. And I'm up next. So I'm over there like looking at my notes. Like, public speaking, I got to get ready for this. I look up to see where the microphone is. And this woman takes it and she goes to basically go over the head of her young son, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and he's having no part of it. And everybody's saying these names, like Bill Matthews, Joe Johnson, I don't know any of these names. This kid pulls his mom's arm down, the microphone ends up right in front of his face, and he says, my daddy. Gut punch. Gut punch. Like, that's why we're here today, to give hope, because I never want to hear that again. It was awful. And then they go, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Gillan. Crying. I'm bawling my eyes out. 5 minutes, stumbled through it. I sit down and this woman goes, you need to tell that story more often. I'm like, oh, we're done. But then I got a call from a university who was at that talk. And I'm only telling this not to tell you how I got here and became an international in a school in Panama. My sister's moving to Panama. Those kids speak Spanish, I speak English. They have no idea what I said. You guys picking up the audio back there? We're good? You let me know. Again, it's not going to stress us out. So this woman brings me in, she goes, I live in South Carolina, University of South Carolina. She goes, I have these psychology interns. I heard you speak at the SPC. Would you be willing to speak to my interns? And I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. So I said, all right, I'll do it. They interview me. Do you want me to move to the other microphone? Let's do that. I can hear it fading out. Now can you hear me good? Now I'm tethered to the lectern. I can't, well, like a caged animal up here now. All right, it all works. The cameraman's like, good, he has to stay there. It works out for everybody, except me. So she goes on, she goes, I'll introduce you. I said, all right, that's fine. Thank goodness it was a small group. And I'm telling you all these stories because I want you to develop your story, because everybody in this room has a story. Everybody. That's why I wish Chaz was still here. She left. You know, I want to encourage you all to come and join this battle I'm in, because we need more warriors. So here's how this goes down. This is my first talk. First talk, I'm a professional speaker. They validated my parking. That counts. I get there and she goes, I'll introduce you. And she starts reading this introduction. And she starts talking about this guy that lost 2 brothers to suicide. And I'm having an out-of-body experience. I cannot believe that guy is me. So I'm sitting there and going, oh, our next speaker lost 2 brothers to suicide. I'm like, oh, that poor schmuck. You know, in my head, right? And then they go, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Gillan. And I went, crap, it's me. And I cried for the entire hour. It just started, whoosh. It was in there and it needed to come out. Thank goodness it was a small horseshoe table of psychology interns. You know, this is right up their alley. You know, this is what they deal with. That's why I had the white noise machine out in the hallway. Crank it up, because this guy's going. It was awful. I get home, my ex-wife goes, how'd it go? I say, I'm not ready for prime time. So then I went to someone, this is funny, because then another school called and said, hey, we heard you did a great job at USC. I'm like, who's writing my Yelp reviews? I bombed. So she said, we want you to come down to college with Charleston. Hey, here's progress. I only cried half the time. We're moving on. And then finally, the third talk, I went to a smaller school, Charleston Southern. It's a Baptist school. And this is kind of neat because it was they have a convocation. The kids had to go. It's Wednesday night service. They have to be there. So it's like a captive audience. The only other time I had a real good captive audience was when I spoke at this prison. Those guys were going nowhere. I had them the entire hour. And those guys were awesome too, by the way, and the females. And there's another story for another day. They were awesome. So the people that saw me speaking, it was 220 in the room. That's what the room held. Because I remember reading it. I looked in the room like, oh my gosh, they're sitting in the aisles. It's like 300. We broke some fire codes that day, but they have to be there. They're not there for me. They have to be there for credit. So this woman must have looked over and saw my knees shaking, and she said, let's pray for our speaker tonight. I was like, let's pray for him. So she prayed for me, and then that time, it hit, like everything in stride. For some reason, I was on fire that day. And you all have a story that inspires you, and I want you to get on fire for the cause you believe in, because that was the day. It took 3 or 4 times to get this thing going. There was one time I spoke at Shaw Air Force Base, and I had to do 6 different talks. And the first talks were awful because it was all stats and all this other stuff. And I was getting bored with my own talk. And somewhere in the middle of the talk, I went on a rant and they started laughing. So I said, I'm going to do that more. Like a little in humor, but serious when I need to be serious. But that day at Charleston Southern, it took off. So I just tell you these stories to encourage you. The first one bombed, and then there I am on the TEDx stage, And I'm going to play that for you because we have time. If you all don't mind, and I need the views. I'll show you that. There's a couple things I want you all to pay attention on this TED Talk. When I walk out there, and there were 9 that day, and there's a little town called Hickory, North Carolina, and I went there for a reason, because if I bombed it, nobody of my friends would saw it. It was gone. So I went up to this little town in Hickory. When I walk out on stage, watch me breathe in and breathe out. Right before I start, I memorized this 16-minute speech, and I didn't think I was ready. We all have self-doubt, right? I'm sitting there, because they introduced it. There's no getting out of it at this point. I'm on. And then watch at the end when I run off the stage. There's 2 classic moments in this talk. when I come on and when I leave, and in the middle, I hit my stride in there somewhere, but it seemed to go okay. And I said it seemed to go okay because of the 9 talks, I was the only one that got a standing ovation that day, but it's not me. I'm telling you what it is. It's the cause. It's people want to talk about this stuff, they just don't know how. Amen, right? It's what we're talking about. They don't know, they want to talk about it, but they don't know how to. So I'm just here to encourage you to talk. And I'm supposed to just hit this play button? Oh, come on now. This is it? I know 2 guys that died alone, and I have a big fear. I do not want to die alone. So I found it somewhat ironic that I was in my apartment alone watching a Japanese documentary called Dying Alone. There's an irony there, and this documentary wanted to say, maybe it's a Japan problem, but I mean, I had to watch it. I really had to watch it. They lose 3 people an hour in Japan to what they call kodokushi, or lonely death. And when I say I had to watch it, I don't know if you guys know this, there's a little bit of knowledge, this is why we come to these conferences. The people in Japan speak Japanese. So it had subtitles. I really had to watch it. And I learned a lot watching this, and it was sad because the opening scene, they were cleaning this apartment of this gentleman, and they recognized that maybe he was gone for close to 7 to 10 days, and nobody noticed. And I was sitting there going, well, that won't happen to me. I have 2 kids. Then I realized this guy had family too. And you know what happens? I thought of the old adage, what happens when 2 people are in charge of feeding the horse? The horse dies of starvation because the one person thought the other one would do it. I could see my boys doing that right now. I thought you were going to call Dad. I thought you were going to call Dad. Where's Dad? You know. So I started thinking maybe that's just a Japanese problem. So I continued my research and I went around the globe. I ended up in a place called the United Kingdom. The Kingdom. And recently, 2018, Prime Minister Theresa May appointed at a cabinet level position the Minister of Loneliness. That's how much she thinks about this. This is a brilliant move. She used the word epidemic. And the words are not lost on me, in the United Kingdom. And I know this is ripe for satire. I could see, it almost sounds like a Monty Python skit, doesn't it? Hello, I'm the Minister of Loneliness. Where's my office? Oh, Minister of Loneliness, you do not have an office. We have a shed out back. That's where you'll be working. Okay, where will I put my employees? Oh, Minister of Loneliness, you do not have any employees. So I'm working in a shed out back with no employees. Sounds like I will be lonely. Sounds like you are perfect for the job. You know, you can see it. It almost sounds like that. But it's really not that funny if you think about it. Because I continued this journey around the globe, and guess where I ended up? USA, USA, the United States of America. Now, we don't have that problem here. We all get along swimmingly, right? Thank you, you detected the sarcasm. So during my research, I looked up 2 big companies. Cigna, the healthcare company, paired up with this company called Ipsos, research data-driven company, and they did a survey of 20,000 Americans on this topic. And using the UCLA loneliness scale. Spoiler alert, if you have a loneliness scale, you probably have an issue with loneliness, right? 46% of us, 4 points, 46% of us felt alone, sometimes or always. 46%, folks, that's almost half. 1 out of 4, or 27%, feel like nobody understands them. 2 out of 5, now we're back in the 40s, feel like their relationships have no meaning or not meaningful. 43% of us. And then I read this other bullet point. I said, hey, that's pretty good. 53% of us have in-person daily social interactions. And then I read it again, and it said only 53% of us So the converse of that is 47% of us do not. Okay, it got awfully quiet in here. You were real happy when I was picking on those other countries, right? This kind of hits home. And it hits home to the point where our former Surgeon General took notice of this. Vivek Murthy, MD, MBA, LMNOP. He's got more degrees than a thermometer. Smart man. He's our top doc, was our top doc. He used the same terminology Theresa May did. He called it an epidemic. And then he said something I thought was sort of odd, but it made sense after I further investigated. He said, this loneliness issue is not an epidemic that is occurring in isolation. I'm sitting there going, we're talking about loneliness, right? It sort of does occur in isolation. But he said, no, it affects all of us. The tribe that is the United States of America. It impacts us all. Now, he got involved in this because of the health benefit, or the detrimental health effects. And our whole thing is about connecting. Our whole theme here at Hickory is about connecting. So I could do a whole talk on the detrimental health effects of loneliness. But all we have to know for today, for the purpose of today, all we have to know is loneliness is the new smoking. Loneliness is the new smoking. And here's another tip. So far we learned that the folks in Japan speak Japanese. Here's a little medical advice for you. If you're going to smoke, do not smoke alone. Smoke in a group. You'll get the first-hand smoke, you'll get the second-hand smoke, you'll get human interaction. It's all good. Do not smoke alone. I hope you guys are writing this down. This is knowledge just coming right up. I only have so much here, people. But that's the health effect. So when I started talking to people, and I talk to people daily, you heard in the introduction, I'm a mental health advocate with an emphasis on suicide prevention. And I started asking people, usually my age, I said, what do you think's causing this, the increase in your loneliness in America? And you know what they often do? They point to social media. Right off the bat, they go, social media, social media, social media. Folks my generation. Then I have to think about those older folks in Japan. They're not really big consumers of social media. So it's more than that. But enough people said it that I started to investigate it. And I went to the Googler and I typed in loneliness and social media. Boom, 38 million hits in less than a second. I'm like, wow, I guess it's a thing. One of the articles I started scrolling through, one of the articles had a gentleman by the name of Paul Angone. He does a blog called All Grown Up. He's talking about his transition from his teens, 20s to 30s, and he uses the word grown, G-R-O-A-N, all grown up. See what he did there? It's called adulting. And he's talking about this transition. He coined a phrase, and there's a serious medical condition called obsessive compulsive disorder. Have you all heard of that? We call it OCD. It's real and it exists. Using those same letters, he came up with he coined another term for OCD, obsessive comparison disorder. That's when we start going through and scrolling and looking at all these, hey, they're on a cruise. Hey, check out their cheeseburger. We're taking pictures of food now, people. And you start to get anxious and you start to get depressed and you volunteered for this. You went on there by yourself and I could see this. And then the anxious and depression, knowing what I do on a daily basis, will lead to withdrawal and isolation. And now we're coming down to our bucket here, loneliness, at a conference with a theme of connect. So I continued my research and I saw one word that popped out at me. It was the word combat. How to combat loneliness. Like, oh, that's an article I need to read. I just don't want to come to Hickory and say, hey, we have a problem with loneliness. Good night, everybody. We need some solutions. And Ruben Castaneda in U.S. News and World Report posted 9 ways to combat loneliness. And I'm sitting there going, you couldn't come up with one more? The top 10 list, you couldn't. I found one, I'll give it to you. It's a bonus. Thank you for showing up today. The first one is see people in real life. When I went through a stressful life event recently, we'll call it a divorce because that's what it was, I moved an hour and a half away. You guys are laughing at the demise of my marriage. Thank you. It happens. I moved an hour and a half away and I found myself alone. So I went to social media, this is where it's good, and I found a hiking club. And I had to sign up for a hike. I had to go to a parking lot and meet people I did not know. I had to get in somebody's car and we drove to the mountains of western North Carolina. I know, it sounds like a horror movie, right at the beginning. And we never saw them again. No, it was a wonderful day. It was an awesome day. So that's it, see people in real life. Number 2, smile and say nice things. Smile and say nice things. I recently had a mundane transaction occur. I was paying a toll on the highway. And I have this pat line that I always use when I want to interact with somebody. I gave the guy my money. I was waiting for my change, and I said, I can't wait till tomorrow, hoping that he would bite. And he goes, hey, what's tomorrow? I said, I have no idea, but I get better looking every day. He laughed because it was funny. I almost cried because I know it's not true. But we interacted. A little side note on that line, by the way, I hope you steal it, but a little side note, never try that with flight attendants. I walked on a plane one time, I tried it, a late night flight, I said, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow, hoping she'd bite, and she goes, what's tomorrow? I said, I don't know, I get better looking every day. She looked at me without blinking and said, I'm glad I didn't see you yesterday. That was a kind way of saying, sit down and shut up. Number 3 on the list, walk interactively. Take the headphones out, talk and walk to people, say hello, walk downtown Hickory, look in the windows, say hi to people, freak them out, say how you doing to total strangers. 4 is exactly that, reduce the number of strangers in your life. Introduce yourself. One less stranger. The minute you introduce yourself to someone, that's one less stranger in your life. Number 5, use your smartphone as a phone. How about that? Dial it up, kids, dial it up. FaceTime's even better. You get to see the person. Use it. Number 6, sign up for a class. I signed up for an improv class when I moved. Wouldn't it be great? We're at a university today. Wouldn't it be great? At one of the breaks, we all went over to the admissions counselor and said, we'd like to sign up for a class today. It would make her day. Number 7, visit somebody that's lonely. Visit someone that's lonely. Remember this, a stick alone can be broken by a child, but a stick in a bundle cannot be broken. We said, well, Dennis, I don't know anyone's lonely. Folks, we have nursing homes full of lonely people. Visit someone that's lonely. Number 8, and I'm a big fan of this, if you get stuck, visit a therapist. I've had really good insurance in my life. I had lousy insurance in my life. I had paid cash money to go see my therapist. If you're stuck, go see a professional. No shame, no stigma in that. Number 9, take baby steps. Congratulate yourself on doing the simple things of life. Like today, we came to this conference. We got out of bed. How about that? Give yourselves a round of applause for that. Right. Not too much. You have to save some for when I leave. My fragile male ego. And number 10, and this is the bonus one, is volunteer for something. Volunteer for something. This conference exists today because of wonderful volunteers. At the end of the day, there was a whole list of things you can do when you volunteer. The last one that really got me is it says it makes you happy. It makes you happy. You're glad you did it. So that's some of the things we can do to combat loneliness. And I'm going to give you 2 challenges. First challenge, you have to do it today. While you're here, you have to go up to a total stranger, somebody you do not know at this conference, and you have to say, how do you think the talks are going? Somebody you don't know. Do not cheat. I will know. And you have to realize, if you're the recipient of that question, that person just left their comfort zone. You owe them grace and a response. If you have trouble peopling and you need a response, I'll help you out. Just say, hey, I think the talks are going really great. That Dennis Gillan guy was awesome. I'll give you $1 if you say that. I appreciate it. So that's the one challenge. The second challenge I want you all to do is find a group of people and break bread with them. We all have that in common. We love food. I told you I lived in an apartment building. An apartment building is kind of cool. It's a bunch of people in transition in life. There's a whole group of young folks that are just entering the professional workforce. It's really cool to watch. There's a bunch of kids in my building the other day studying for the CPA exam. Like, go kids, go. Good luck to you. Fly, be free. And then I run into this group. This is a group of men that are in my building, and we're all different stages of life. And we picked. I picked it. I said, guys, we got to start meeting off-site and having breakfast together. So we picked the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. We sit around and have breakfast. It's unbelievable. All we have is a meal, no agenda. Somebody sends out a text, and there we go. I wish I took a picture from last week, because last week, instead of the 4 or 5 of us, there was 8 of us, which tells me there's an appetite for this stuff. People really want to get together. Now, I don't know much about these guys. We're all in different phases of life. I'll go around the horn. I know Tom's from Wisconsin, Will's from Illinois, Jim's from Kansas City, and Barry talks funny. We think he's from England. It could be Australia. We don't know. I'll get back to you on that. But remember why we're here today. Connect. I'm giving you an assignment. You have to do that. Long after the glow of this wonderful conference is over, you need to do this. You need to do this. We need to connect. We are wired. We are wired to connect with other people. Remember, this is a guy coming from a guy who sat through in his apartment watching a video called Dying Alone. We need each other. We need each other. So let's think about this. How did I start my talk today? How did I start? I said, I know two guys that died alone. Some of you said, no, the Japanese documentary. No, before that, when I walked out, I said, I know two guys that died alone. Here they are. I have something in common with these guys. Our last name. Our parents. These are my brothers. It's Mark and it's Matthew. We lost both of those guys to suicide. Folks, now you know what I do every day. In America, the United States of America, we lose 47,173 people a year to suicide, which may be the ultimate and most fatal symptom of loneliness. Perceived or real. And remember, perception is reality. That's one person every 11 minutes. 129 a day. Do you see why we need each other? Do you see why we need each other? Folks, when I walked out here, I said, I don't want to die alone. There's no real truth in that statement. I thought I did. And when I started preparing for this talk, I got really introspective as the week went on, as we got closer to this date to come here to talk to you guys. It's not that I'm afraid of dying alone. No, not at all. The real fact is, I don't want to live alone, and I don't want you to either. Thank you. Look at this. I just wanted to show you that, knowing that I bombed the first one to come all the way that far, and I want to encourage you all to think about that. And if this strikes a chord with you, find me. I'll coach you through it. I've coached a few other people through this. You know, I'll encourage you. I'll tell you what I did and what I didn't do. I look at that now with a harsh eye. There's a couple things I've totally screwed up. And in front of, if you saw it in front of the monitor, there was just two monitors. One had the time on there. You were told how much time you have. And the other one was just the slides. And I didn't want to do a whole PowerPoint thing, so I only had like 4 or 5 slides that you saw. But if this is something that suits your fancy and everybody has a role to play, let me know. Get a hold of me and I'll try to coach you through it. So that was it. That's, you know, all the way to there. Now I'm going to it froze up, bro. Did that work? There we go. All right, let me tell you about the vulnerability piece. So Sarah, you're going to help me with this. You're going to read this intro. I spoke, and this is not like to tell you, great speaker, all this blah, blah. I'm trying to encourage you all to do it because we need as many people as we can. And this is going to sound very, I don't know, egotistical, but it's not, because this girl caught me off guard. I spoke 4 years, like 2016 or something, at this event, and this girl heard me speak, and then she said, hey, can you speak to my sorority sisters? And she goes, Mr. Gillan, I'll do the intro. And you never know who's out there in the audience. You never know who's listening. And this is a Zoom call. And she goes, I'll do the intro, and then you take over from there. Her name is Pam Minkler. And Sarah, if you have it handy, can you read that intro? Because I can't even read it without crying. She goes, I'll do the intro, and then you go. And Sarah, this is what she said.
In September of 2016, my brother, my only sibling, died of an overdose. His 2 nephews, my sons, will grow up knowing him only through the stories that I tell them of our shared childhood and the many times he made me laugh. About 4.5 months after Charles's death, I attended Chi Omega's firesides with our chapter leaders. Dennis Gillan was the keynote speaker for that event, which was focused on mental health and emotional well-being. As I sat there listening to Mr. Gillan talk that Friday night, I truly understood for the first time how people could walk away from immense crisis and unfathomable loss in a positive direction. I was especially touched by his honesty and his remarkable ability to take his own grief, turn it around, and use it to help others overcome theirs. I started to see that there was a light at the end of this dark tunnel I was walking through. The morning after Mr. Gillan's talk, I stood in line for breakfast in the hotel lobby. I looked up and I saw him standing several people ahead of me. I debated whether I could hold myself together enough to talk to him and thank him. I thought I could. It turned out that I couldn't. But as he hugged me and I wiped tears from my eyes, I realized that while I still grieved and still do grieve, Charles would live on in those stories I tell my boys and in whatever it was that I chose to do to use my own pain to help others. Mr. Gillan helped me see that there are still ways I could make my brother's life matter. Several months after Firesides, I joined the board of directors for Roads to Recovery, a local organization that provides support for people as they focus on and sustain their recovery. Mr. Gillan's presence at Firesides in 2017 changed my life, and I will be forever grateful to him and to Chi Omega for that. Mr. Gillan, thank you, both for your talk in 2017 and for being here with us tonight. With your words and your story, you are changing lives.
And then she goes, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Gillan, and I'm bawling, crying. I'm already crying. She lost her brother to an opioid addiction. And we were talking back at our table, this is a big tent. We're focused on suicide prevention, but we need to go upstream and talk about mental health, suicide, substance use disorder, everything that comes in that tent. So that's Pam Minkler. She's in my little file now, and let's see if this comes up. There she is. I had to take a moment before I even started that talk. I was like, all right, we're done, ladies, we're done. She got me good there. Josh, let me tell you, I'm going to bring up a couple people that I've met in my life in the hopes that I inspire you to be vulnerable and then share your sorrow, because when it happens, people like Josh come in my life. I was trying to get into, how I met Josh, I was trying to get into Georgia Tech University. And I thought we were done. We inked this deal, and then the girl I was in contact with left. That happens a lot at the university level. She left, and I had to start all over again. But before she left, she said, hey, you got to meet a friend of mine. His name is Josh Gardner. He lost his father and his brother to suicide. All right. He lives near my town. I'll meet him. Josh struggled with depression. And we used to meet at a Dunkin' Donuts all the time. And some days, Josh would come and he'd look great. And if you ever dealt with anyone with a serious mental health issue, some days are awesome. Some days he looked like something the cat dragged in. And we were very upfront about it. Josh, are you okay? He would lose weight like nobody's business. He wouldn't eat. It can go either way. Eat too much or eat too. He was one of those guys that ate too less, didn't eat. And one time he walked in and his pants were basically hanging off. I'm like, dude, are you okay? Like, we have to do something. His mom's calling me, this is serious. So he checked himself into a place called Three Rivers, and I went and visited him, an inpatient. And like many people here, we talked about it's 28 days. What happens after 28 days? You barely find out where the bathrooms are. It's too short. So he did that. He did the transcranial magnetic imaging, the TMI. No, TMI is too much information. That's TMI. It is. It's transcranial. The magnets. He tried that to battle his depression. He did that. And I was so proud of him. He kept fighting. He went back to Three Rivers, stay number 2. And they joked about it. He walked in there. He still had a sense of humor some days. And the guy goes, Josh, what are you doing back here? He goes, I had such a good time the last time. I'm back. Frequent flyer. And it happens. It takes a while to get better. And then he did something I was really proud of. He went and got ECT because he was not done. Now, he could have been done and chose suicide, but he says, no, I'm fighting. And I love this. I love this guy, and I love what he did. He went and got ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. It's the gold standard, and they do microdoses now. And he was, what do they call it? Depression. There's a word for it that doesn't go away. Oh, that's it. Thank you, Gerard. So, as I told Josh, we used to always meet at Dunkin' Donuts. We always met. Well, we're moving up in the world. Now we meet at Starbucks. Look at his smile. We almost lost this guy. It was close. It was touch and go. And then, this is why I'm crying. These are tears of joy, because look what this little bastard brought to our meeting. He brought his baby. Look at that. This close, folks. But what I'm so proud about Josh is he raised his hand. He said, I am not doing well, and let everybody around him know. And then he changed his people, place, and things too. He moved out of the house where his brother died. He moved out. He sold his brother's car. He had to get rid of that stuff. He couldn't do it at first, but when he was ready, he was ready. And now look at him, bringing Junior. That's little Aiden to our meetings now. So there's three dudes hanging out at Starbucks. We've come a long way since Dunkin' Donuts. Aaron Hill. This is my life. You just saw the TEDx talk, seen by dozens. Aaron Hill, I started the foundation, the Half a Sarah Foundation, and one thing you need is software, I guess, when you're a 501c3. You need software to stay in touch with donors. This is all the stuff I absolutely stink at. So this guy, he works for Blackbaud, and he calls me up, and he's trying to sell me something, and he was really honest with me. He goes, Dennis, you're kind of small right now. My software's for like big charities. He could have sold me, and I'm like, all right, but thank you for your honesty. And he goes, by the way, I saw your TEDx talk, and I thought he was just doing, reconnaissance on a potential client. I said, oh, did you watch it before we met? He goes, no, my therapist recommended I watch it. I said, what? Your therapist recommended? He goes, yeah, I went through everything you went through. I had a divorce, didn't want it, and she recommended I watch it. So years ago, I knew about you. It's just weird that we're on the phone now. And that's how life works. The minute you, again, the vulnerability piece, the minute I let down my guard, knuckleheads like this come into my life. I'll tell you a funny story about Aaron. He didn't want the divorce. I didn't want the divorce. So we're very similar there. Our stories were like parallel. And then his ex-wife set him up to go see this house shown by this realtor. It was a FSBO, for sale by owner. He fell in love with the realtor. They're now married. It was her house. And they're like, oh, not a happy ending. There you go. But that is the most bizarre story. I think I watched your TEDx talk. Why? Because my therapist told me to. So think about that. You all have a story to tell. This is Debbie Baird. Oh, I wanted to wring her neck. Here's what's happening. This is the 5th annual conference here in North Dakota. Is that correct? 5th annual. I go to speak in New Hampshire, 15th annual. So we're going to catch them. We're going to catch them. We'll get there, North Dakota. So I sent her my slide deck. And this is during my divorce, and I'm living in this apartment all by myself. And she says, she sent an email about the slide deck to me, but I wasn't supposed to get it. Ooh, did you ever do that? You ever hear like reply all and zing somebody, and that zinger's on the line? That happened. She kind of cut it up a little bit and took it apart and said, I'm not sure this is the guy we want. Now, I've already signed the contract. We're going. And I remember this day like it was yesterday because I was at a Mazda dealership getting my car fixed, and my temperature rose right away. I'm like, all right, I'm going to zing her back and say, screw your conference. I'm not coming. Blah, blah, blah. My fragile male ego. My feelings were hurt. I thought about it. And there's a parallel to suicide prevention, but I didn't act on it. I said, when I get home, when I get back to the office, when my car's done, I'll respond. And on the drive from the dealership back to my office, I had this realization. Debbie Baird was right. Those slides sucked. I phoned it in. I totally phoned it in. I didn't look at NAMI, New Hampshire. I didn't do anything specific to the state, anything specific to that conference. I just, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Boom. And they weren't that good. They really weren't. She was spot on. So then I went back to the office. All right, let me blow them away. And then you saw the call deck, the new deck. That's all because of her. The last one was horrible. Debbie Baird got me going. And then, like everybody else in this business, folks, everybody else in this business, Debbie has a story why she works for NAMI. She lost her son to suicide. So how could I be mad at this woman who basically called me out for a horrible presentation, and she was right? And then the little God moment in all this. I lost a brother named Matthew, and her son was Matthew. Debbie Baird is going to be in my book for calling me out. And she's a doll. How can you be mad at that face? Look at that smile. Hey, did you guys ever see this on HBO? The Great Depression. There you go. Sarah saw it. Oh, you saw him? All right, now you're just bragging. It's my presentation. Did we not learn anything from Debbie Baird? I'm a fragile male eagle. Great, folks, highly recommend it. Stand-up comedian, one of the funniest guys on the planet, went through depression. He also went through ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, talked about it, interviewed his mom. He presented it in a light fashion. It's on HBO. I had to hack in. I had to use my future daughter-in-law's password because I wanted to see this thing. Everyone's talking about this thing. He was on a couple AFSP ads. They had Gary Goldman, The Great Depression. So Sarah, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but you said, see a show? You're not the only one who saw him live. There he is. Thanks for playing along. No, what he does at his show, and this is why you will back me up on this, he talks a little bit about his depression, and he's funny, and then his regular show is awesome. His new material was unbelievable. And then he sticks around after the show for as long as, and there was a line out the door to talk to him, and he stays there. Look at the bartenders are picking up the chairs behind me. They're sweeping up. We're there. Awesome. So check it out. The Great Depression, HBO, I think it was, Gary Goldman. And it's a really good, if you know anyone who's struggling, watch it with them. I highly encourage it. I told my buddy Josh to see it, and then Josh went and got ECT, and then you saw Josh. So the ripple effect of goodness here. Highly recommend that. Who else did I run into? Oh, this dork. Stephen Peele. And that's a term of affection because we're writing a children's book together based on his story. Stephen, I spoke at the University of Delaware, and what I would do is I figured these kids don't want to hear this old guy talk for an hour. So what I do, through the counseling department, I would bring up 3 students throughout the presentation. I say, oh, you don't believe me? How about one of your own? And one of them come up and they tell the story. The girls are awesome, by the way. All the girls, every time I go to colleges, the girls are awesome. They're very prepared. They have an agenda. Stephen goes, Mr. Gillan, I'm just going to wing it. I'm like, oh, Stephen, we're not winging anything. This is a suicide. You got to be very targeted with your message, and you got to be clear. You can't say this. You got to say that. He goes, all right. So I talked him up, but he still never gave me his full presentation. The girls gave me theirs like in typed, and all this stuff. They told me what they're going to say. He still didn't do it. Then he gets up there and tells a story about when he was in middle school, just having a bad day, and he was thinking about dying by suicide. That's what in his head in middle school. As you can see, he's very tall. He's adopted. He's Mexican, and he's tall for Mexican. He's tall, and he's like, I got picked on. I wasn't good at sports. It just wasn't going right. He felt like he didn't know his parents, but he comes from a loving family. We just was feeling it. And that day, as he's walking out of school, one of the cool kids comes up to him, and he's ready for it. It's just one of those days. Everybody's picking on him, and he looks down, and he sees his sneakers, and Stephen had a new pair of sneakers on. And the guy looks at him and goes, hey, Stephen, nice shoes. And Stephen thought there was a joke coming. Like, do they come in men's? Something like that. But the guy goes, no, really, I like your sneakers. And that's how Stephen left school that day, with a kind word. So we're working on this children's book called Nice Shoes, Stephen Peele. He tells that story, and then he gets up there and he says, I'm Stephen Peele. I forgot how he ended. He goes, I am not bipolar. I have bipolar, and a disease does not define me. And he drops the mic and walks off. And I have to follow him. I'm like, the crowd's going nuts. I'm like, damn it. He killed it. The guy who was going to wing it nailed it. And you'll hear more from him in the future. What else we got here? This one I never met. I never met her. But I love this sonnet she wrote. I hope you remember to eat today, to give yourself enough energy to throw the scale away. I hope that waking up causes you no pain, and that you stop measuring life in loss and gain. I hope you say, I love you tonight, and that you still mean it for many a night. I hope that you spread your wings and fly into tomorrow and get a full day ahead of your sorrow. I hope you remember to treat yourself well and that by the look in your eyes, everybody can tell. I hope you write yourself a long overdue love letter, telling yourself that you are strong and things will get better. I hope today you will see that you are lovely and that you're good enough and worth the recovery. Casey Rose Shanahan. I never met her because we lost her. She battled. I met her friend, and her friend told me, I got to share this poem with you my friend wrote. And then she told me that we lost Casey to suicide. I never met her, but I feel like I know her. And I'll forever, never, ever forget this. And I posted it on Instagram with her, her mom's permission, and her mom wrote a nice note, it's good to see it in print. So I want to meet all these people before they leave, and I want them all to die of a ripe old age. Hey, remember when I told you about the guy, when I was talking about substance abuse, the guy that, what did he do? He went to rehab 12 times? Bobby Brazel. I forgot when we were back then, we found out that Seth couldn't make it today. I said, Bobby sent me a slide one day, and I'm going to show you guys that this guy exists. Is it up? There he is. That was Bobby on the left side during his rock and roll days. And I forgot that he sent me this. I just wanted to prove to you that this guy exists. And there he is today. Oh, I didn't do that, did I? Oh, a sneak peek at the next one. But I just wanted to show you this guy is real. Bobby Brazel, and we were talking about how big this tent is, substance use disorder, that now he's helping people. And I never would have met this guy if I didn't sign up to speak at this Mental Health America conference and listen to his talk before I went on stage. It's incredible. So again, the inspiration here is for you, and for you folks out there watching. You have a story to tell. Start crafting it. We need you. And Bobby's story was amazing. And then you saw this little slide here, Jimmy Fallon. Did I get to meet Jimmy Fallon? No. But he's in your slide deck, you dork. I know. But check it out. This month, in the issue of Entrepreneur magazine, Jimmy Fallon and I are in the same issue. He's on the cover. I'm somewhere back on page like 96. But there I am with the purple folder. And let me tell you about this purple folder and why you need one. This is a protective factor. Whenever I think about quitting this business, and it's a tough business for all of us, everyone in this room, it's a tough business. I go into this purple folder and I read some of the comments and compliments that people have said. Thank you for sharing your story. The Pamela Minkler introduction is in that folder, and you all need a purple folder, every one of you, where you go and you put a note in there. On the day you're having your worst day, or the day you find out we lost someone like Casey, and you go read that folder, and you say, I got to keep going. I got to stay in this battle because it's not done. Remember, the goal's 0. We're at 45,000 plus. It's not done. So check it out. There it is. And by the way, I think she's on my list. I wrote the article. They didn't feature me. It's a part of the book, magazine Entrepreneur, called What Inspires Me. All right, since I think I know you guys because I spent all day with you, I'll tell you how I found the article. I am not an entrepreneur, and nor do I subscribe to it. I do now because I'm in it. But prior to that, I was in the men's room at work, and somebody left it behind. So I'm reading it, and this article says, what inspires me? And I started reading. The guy who wrote the article before me was his grandpa's lunch pail. His grandpa worked in a mill, and he had it in his office. And he goes, that's where I come from. That lunch pail represents the sacrifices my folks made. So I started, when I was done in the men's room, I started walking down the hall going, what inspires me? And it took me like a nanosecond, the purple folder, because it existed way before the article. So what I'm going to inspire you all to do is what inspires you, and write about it. So I write this article, and in August or something, they said, hey, Dennis, we're going to run it in the January issue. And they said, you got to get a hold of this woman, Judith. And she's going to tell you how to she's our photography editor. She's going to tell you how to do the photo. She saw my big boy selfie. She knows I don't know how to do photos. She goes, all right. Judith, I get Judith on the phone. This is how it all works. Judith goes, I'm so glad they picked your article because they get thousands of them. She goes, I lost my mom to suicide when I was 12. And Judith wrote a little note to a little girl named Beatrix Spade, Kate Spade's daughter, who was about 12 or 13 when we lost Kate Spade. And I said, Judith, can I read that note? She goes, yeah, it's on Instagram. And I heard she saw it. So she sent it to me, and I was like, Judith, you should not be a photographer. You should be a writer. It was awesome. And it's on my webpage, dennisgillan.com, blah, blah, blah. But I said, Judith, can I blog about this? This is one of those life moments. I can't let this go. Like I couldn't let Stephen's story go. She goes, yeah, you could write about it. But it was just a beautiful, heartfelt message from someone who's been there to someone who's going through it at the moment. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So me and Jimmy Fallon are like BFFs. This is a classic. You get the small. I just started thinking about this. Russ Harringer. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. You saw earlier today the statistics for the construction industry are really high. And I was doing a meeting at a construction facility. And right before I went on, I was in the back row, and this meeting was kind of tight, and I was in the back row, and I go on next. These poor guys at this meeting, they had an insurance part, like bonding, and then I go on. So these poor guys have, they love to be constructing stuff, and now they're inside a building with fluorescent lights, and the agenda is insurance and then suicide. Who puts that agenda together, right? So as I'm sitting in the back row, this guy turns to Russ and says, looking at the agenda, and I'm right behind him. He goes, I hope I don't kill myself during this presentation. And he's pointing to my presentation. I'm like, uh-oh, game on. Again, my blood got rolling. I'm like, this is the guy I'm going after. Because this is the guy I need in the room. This is the guy that doesn't think he needs it when he needs it. So every time I spoke, every time I made a point, like 79% of all suicides are guys, I pointed right at that dude. I'm going for it. There's like an audience of 100, but that guy's in my sights. I'm blasting him at every point I could. And at the end of the conversation, at the end of the presentation, guess who came up to me at the end? Not that guy. It didn't work. Russ came up to me. Russ was the guy he turned to and said, I hope I don't kill myself. Remember when you joke, there's two people involved. Russ was the jokey, I don't know what it is, but the other guy was the joker. The jokey comes up to me and tells me a story about when he was a young construction foreman, that he saved the guy's life. The guy, he comes out to the yard and the guy's giving away his tools, and Russ goes, he's like 25 years old. He goes, what's going on? He just got promoted to this job, and the guy goes, I quit, I'm done. Turns out this guy was having trouble at home, the marriage thing. He goes, well, don't quit, don't do that. Why don't you come home with me? He goes, had no place to live, and he slept on Russ's couch for a couple months. Russ was just newly married. I said, how'd your wife take it? She goes, not so good. Hey, honey, this is my buddy from work. He's going to stay with us for a while in a one-bedroom apartment. But he saved that guy's life. Russ is now retired, and that guy is still alive. And Russ sent me a photo of that guy who wanted to quit walking his daughter down the aisle. Come on, Russ, you're killing me. Hold my microphone. That's another person I met. When I told you about the students I bring up on stage, this one girl, I interview him on the phone. Counseling's involved. We just want to vet them, and I give them a signal somewhere during the presentation. If you do not want to come up, just rub your nose or something, and I'll skip over your slide. We don't have to do it. So this one girl's on the phone, and we're talking. She goes, "Hey, Mr. Gillan, when you get up there, and I do my story, you need to hold the microphone for me." And I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "I'm blind." She prepared her remarks in Braille. She needed both hands. She needed one hand to hold it and the other hand to read it. So there I am at this school, holding a microphone for this young lady who has no sight, telling her story about mental health, bawling my eyes out. And I remember saying at the end of that day, I said, you know what? She got off the stage and it was unbelievable. Place was going nuts for her and what she just shared. And I remember saying to myself, like, you know what? As a professional speaker, you should never bring somebody up who's better than you. And I did it 3 times that day. I guess it's not that hard. And what is that? My first DJ? When I speak at colleges, I usually have a DJ come up on stage. It just gets the room, the energy level up, and I tried it. One time at Kennesaw State, I said, I'm going to try this because I have ADHD, and if a guy gets up there and speaks stats all day, I'm gone. I know myself. So I said, what would be cool? I said, a DJ, and I had music in my presentation, all this stuff. So halfway through the talk, I look over, and my DJ is kind of like looking out He's gone. I'm like, it was our cue, like, hello, and at the end of the day, we'd break it down, and I said, what was up there? First time I ever used a DJ. He goes, I was just thinking about a guy we lost in my fraternity. All right, first guy I ever picked, lost somebody to suicide, and when I looked over at him, he was gone. So you just never know. And Judith, by the way, is the woman who did she's the photographer. So I'm going to wrap it up right about here. I think we are bringing it home, covering Seth and myself. The coolest person I met recently is you all. I never know who's listening. You never know who's out there. And if you got a story to tell and you want someone to encourage you, I'm all in. We need all hands on deck in the battle for mental health and reducing the stigma. All hands on deck. There it is. I gave you my email address, dennis@halfashour.org. I say, Dennis, I saw you in North Dakota. I'd like to speak one day. What do you think? I said, let's hear it. I will encourage you, though, if you're really thinking about it, join Toastmasters or something like that, a professional speaking group. I got lucky early on and joined them, and they helped me a lot. So that's it. Those are the coolest people I meet, and count yourselves in that. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Dennis, can you stick around for a question? Dennis, can you stick around for a question? It's me. It's Joyelle. This is a personal question. No, it's not a personal question for you. So you and I have something in common. You lost 2 brothers. I lost 1 brother. It'll be 6 years this March. And I've talked with other families and other parents that have concerns for children, their children, and especially knowing, having a family history of suicide. I have 5 kids, and so I've had other parents come up to me and say, gosh, my 7-year-old said he wishes he were dead, or, you got 15-year-olds struggling with mental health issues. I guess what advice would you give parents during this time? And I know that there was a lot of resources here today, but I think our kids are struggling in a way that is really challenging for us. So I guess, do you have anything you would add for that?
Well, as a parent, I said earlier, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but as a parent of 2 young men, first, which was really tough for me, I had to figure out what age can I tell them about the 2 uncles they don't have. And I always thought that day would reveal itself. And one day I was on the phone talking to somebody about an upcoming presentation, not realizing one of my kids was behind me. So when I hung up the phone, he goes, Dad, is that true? And I just realized it just revealed itself. It's time. So I sat him down and talked about it, and then I sat his brother down and talked about it. And we've had very open conversations about mental health along the way. An opportunity arose a couple years ago when 13 Reasons Why came out. I said, boys, let's watch this together, because you're going to watch it behind my back anyway, because you got Netflix in your pocket. So we've had very open and frank conversations about mental health. And one of but they know what I've gone through and all this stuff. One of the things I keep pressing to my boys, and this is just one parent to another parent, is if anything is happening, bring me into your world. I'm here to help. I'm not the enemy. You have no bigger cheerleader than me and your mom. That's a fact, Jack. Bring us in, and we can't help you if you don't let us know. And Mark and Matthew are 2 examples of that. So very open conversations. With boys, it's bizarro. You say, how was school? Good. How's your mental health? Good. They give you like 1-word answers. So you have to figure out what draws them out. We put a ping pong table in our dining room just so I could have conversations with them. And it worked. They would tell me more over ping pong than they would, at the dinner table. So it's just, never try to, not a parenting expert, but don't overreact when they tell you something. And going to, I'm fully capable of this, going to full-blown freak-out mode. What? You're thinking of what? No. Tell me more. How'd you get there? And then all the training on the helpline helped me immensely. Ask questions. Don't fix it. That's why I had that tip on there. Don't offer fixes. Dad, I'm kind of depressed. Well, why are you depressed? You know, just, you have so much to live for. And he could look at me and go, why do you have asthma? There's so much air. You know, like, good point, punk. But it's true. Like, don't try to fix it. You know, and just listen and foster an environment. It's hard that they'll open up to you. What kid wants to open up to mom and dad? But I'm pretty sure, and because I keep pushing it, like, especially with my younger one, he had right out of college, his first job wasn't good, and I kept saying, how is your mental health? You know, the job is tough. How it's a conversation, like how you're feeling is one thing, but how is your mental health? Brendan, how are you doing with this? So just as best you can, talk about it frequently, and then, you know, and let them know that you're an avenue, you're an advocate. I'm a mentor, not a tormentor, as they think. So hope that helps.
It does, thank you. And I think about something that Allison, I believe I've heard her say that just because you ask somebody about suicide, or if you're asking them, are they suicidal, you're not. That doesn't mean that they're going to do it, or you're giving them an idea. Does that sound familiar, Allison?
Right, that you can't plant the seed by asking about suicide. Like it's helpful. It reduces the risk to ask and have an open conversation, but be prepared to listen without judgment, like he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I never in the history of time has someone said, you know, I wasn't thinking about it, but now that you ask, I am thinking about it. That doesn't, you know, no, and if they are thinking about it, there might be a sense of relief, like, oh, is it that obvious? You know, am I showing it that much? And it opens the door. And if someone asks you, are you suicidal? You're standing in front of somebody who really cares about you. That's a hard question to ask. And if someone has the guts to ask it, they have the guts to be your friend for life.
Yeah, one thing I just want to add with that too, because I do work with schools, but I have gone to a couple different like PTA meetings that they've asked Firstling to be at. The biggest question I get from parents, and it's great that we're asking this, but parents kind of then go, how do I even start that conversation? Where do I go? That's, you know, it's one thing to think about starting it, but where do I go? There's a really good book, and you can actually download it online for free through Robbie's-Hope. And Robbie's Hope has a book, and it talks a little bit about technology, social media, and how that can help or hinder. And then it also talks about, like, as a parent, you know, kind of age things, and very similar to what you said too. It should just be as normal as asking, you know, how was your day? Well, how is your mental health doing, or how are you feeling as well? So that's a really, really good book for any parent. I've read through it, and I'm not a parent, but I thought it was so helpful, and it helps me too. So I just want to let you guys know that's out there.
Now you got to put that link somewhere. We got to find that. There's no way I'm going to remember that with my ADHD. Executive function, gone. Folks, I think I gave you way too much. An hour of me is enough. You got 2 hours. I'm so sorry for that. But you all been awesome. Thank you very much.